you keep on looking at art, and the more you study it, the more you comprehend it, I think. It's not just the beauty of the art, but the significance of the art. I keep on, learning, and I'm always learning, and I'm always, I think I drive people crazy that are around me because I discover new ways, new areas that fascinate me. My name is Jorge Pérez. I think of myself as a philanthropist and an art collector and a real estate developer. My mother used to take me to movies and to the theater. She was very, very visual, and to museums. And I developed this love not only for this art that you see around you, but a passion for movies. And it's a passion that I think has changed my life. I think art makes me think in a totally different way than the day-to-day business. I've always wanted my art to become public. I think art that you just put in your house and nobody sees, it's nice for you, but the people don't get to enjoy it. And I've always thought that I'm just a depository for art.
This inspired the title for the exhibition. So that particular piece is an embroidered portrait, and it's a portrait of Maria Sabina. And Maria Sabina was a Mazatec Mexican community healer, shaman, very active in her community, particularly in the 60s, 70s. And so the title of the show, A World Far Away, Nearby, and Invisible, is actually a line from one of her poems.
And then the masterpiece is Leonora Carrington, who also was talking about, curanderos said they go into many times trances and things like that. And this piece, and Leonora is very surreal, and I think they talk to each other.
There's a great energy, and if you notice, there's this particular section, the hands are very important, the eyes are very important, almost as windows to the soul, but also, what we see in nature, the energy that we emit from our bodies, but how we receive that from nature, how we give that to the natural world as well. We wanted to create that interesting dialogue between all these artists that are different generations and different contexts, yet they all have a beautiful relationship.
The show started with me meeting the curators and discussing what our next show is going to be. And they said, we really should do something about landscape, about earth, about territory. It's a wonderful collaboration. So this is a product of a lot of thought. And most of the thinking, I have to be honest, is done by the curators. So our curatorial team, these three people that have been working very hard in this, are the ones that really have put it together, and I just love it.
A World Far Away, Nearby, and Invisible is an exhibition that tries to analyze the very complex and broad and expanded concept of territory. It starts from the idea of a territory as a very tangible, material, grounded element to a very much invisible, where forces of spirituality can come in. My name is Claudia Segura. I'm the guest curator here at El Espacio 23 for the exhibition of this year called A World Far Away, Nearby, and Invisible. And I'm the head of collections at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Barcelona, Spain.
I'm Patricia Hanna, and I'm the director of El Espacio 23 and the Jorge Pérez collection. It's so nice when we invite curators from abroad or from outside, and we have such interesting dialogues where they bring a fresh perspective to something maybe we've been seeing for a long time, and vice versa.
The process of selection, it's really a dialogue between the curators of the El Espacio 23, who are the ones who actually know the collection, and they previously select some works that they think that kind of suits with the theme, territory. They started the selection from the 9,000 works that compose the collection, and then from that we started to kind of dig in on the dialogues that we wanted to establish.
These are my acquisitions of African art. I really got involved with African art because I saw many similarities with Latin America in the way the countries were conquered and taken over by the European powers.
This chapter is called Shelter Among the Scars, and it's where artists are exploring the concept of the earth as a shelter, as a place of comfort, and as a place of refuge. kind of exploring this push and pull that we humans have with the earth, extractivism and climate change and ecological crises, yet we always return to the land and it always becomes a shelter. So that's what we call a shelter among the scar. And for instance, Teresita Fernández is a perfect example of the regenerative power of nature. So she's exploring obviously these beautiful night landscapes, the golden stars and the skies, but if you notice the bottom part of the piece is all burnt wood.
This particular piece, when I see it here, it's a totally different work. And I love it more here because it has so much more room to breathe. And you find that in art a lot. Depending on where you put it, the art talks to you in a different way.
These two pieces are from Sandra Vásquez de la Horra. She's a Chilean artist, and they are included in the chapter called Whispers from the Land. This chapter, these sections, wants to explore practices that actually talk about these invisible forces that appear in nature and in territory. And you see these two figures, beautiful figures that talk to each other, that have this power, that kind of are expanded through the hands. When we displayed the works in the space, we suddenly found that we had hands talking to other hands, eyes looking into other eyes. Suddenly the words started to talk to us, and they decided to do these dialogues and references.
This is a piece by Nohemí Pérez, who's an artist from Colombia. And she's an artist that we've collected in depth in the collection. And we love this piece. It's a beautiful yet strong piece at the same time. And this is graphite on canvas. It appears like a beautiful landscape, but then she embeds kind of within the landscape these almost like a secret language of images from her past. And we did a beautiful interview with her for the exhibition catalog where she says that this whole process is very cathartic for her. Ana Gonzalez, which this piece here, she's also from Colombia. It's also a landscape. It's a faded landscape. It's very beautiful, almost nostalgic, poetic. But again, it talks about ecologies and how we are damaging, our ecosystems. And then it's next to two literal, pieces where Minerva Cuevas, you see this very academic image of the ocean, of the wave, and it's calling you, but it's tainted somehow by this black, dripping oil. We placed it particularly because if you're in the gallery, you hear the sound of the ocean calling you into the Graciela Sacco installation.
So to me, when we saw this and we saw this together, it wasn't just the art, the artistry, the technique of the art, but I felt that it was threatening in the way that I felt like I was in the middle of the storm.
So as you're hearing the ocean calling you, the piece is cada salida puede ser un encierro. So every exit can also be an enclosure. In the context of the show, we wanted it to be a rite of passage. It's something that like a literal and figurative bridge that you have to cross between sections.
It's a bridge and then there's water, right? But it isn't. That's created by mirrors everywhere by the artist. And again, nature, the ocean as beauty, the bridge, but also the feel that at any moment something bad could happen because of the precarious position that you're in as you're crossing. This is really interesting artist. We love this particularly not only because we really like the artist, but he was one of our residents.
We have 3 artists a month, all year long. So it's quite a number of artists and they live and they work here. So, they become part of the El Espacio 23 family. And so Vinicius was very eager. He's young and it was the first time outside Brazil. So we were very excited to include this piece in the exhibition.
And similarly, from Haiti, to me, well, the first time you go and see it and say, wow, that's beautiful. You look at it and it's really impactful. And I think we moved to this one, and this is a master, Chris O'Feely, also from the Caribbean, but it's just a beautiful piece, and you see, the animals and the nature in a totally different form of expression. This is a great masterpiece for me.
We're very lucky to be surrounded by all these artists from all these places, all these shared experiences. And then what's even more beautiful is connecting the dots and understanding that one person can be from South Africa, one person can be from Brazil, yet the experiences are so connected and universal. I think for us to make the world a better place, I think there needs to be a lot more understanding, there needs to be a lot more compassion, and what better way than to use the visual arts to do that.
And people were saying, you have an art passion. I said, no, I think passion has long passed. I sort of inject art in my veins, I think. But yes, I'm very passionate about it, and when I see something that I love, I get goosebumps all over the body, and it's a great feeling.